Montgomery Community Media presents Small Business Network, brought to you by M&T Bank. SBN is also sponsored by Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation and Leadership Montgomery.
Hello and welcome to Montgomery Community Media's Small Business Network, presented to you by M&T Bank. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kelly Leonard, and every month we bring the business community together to network, to collaborate, and to share best practices in an effort to stimulate regional economic development. Today we have an exciting topic. It's all about making Montgomery County business friendlier. And we have a great panel to discuss this topic. First and foremost, we have our new County Executive, Mr. Marc Elrich. Welcome, Mr. Elrich. And joining him is the County Council President, Mrs. Nancy Navarro. Welcome to you both. Thank you. Now, Mr. Elrich, you've only been in office for a short period of time, right?
Very short.
But what have some of your immediate priorities been to support small business in particular and economic development?
It's hard to say. I mean, our first immediate priorities were dealing with the $50 million shortfall that I was handed on my second day when I walked through the door. That was kind of immediate, and trying to deal with budget problems around the capital budget, where we didn't have funding for the capital budget that we had budgeted. This year was budgeted for last year. When it got down to finding the money wasn't so much there. So we had to put together revised capital budget, more than we normally would have done. What we have done is Sidney Katz has had his first meeting. We're going to start setting up a group to evaluate our business environment. It was something, we were going through the campaign and people are talking about how bad we are compared to everybody else. And after 12 years on the council, I realized we had never actually figured out what made us worse than everybody else. And I thought it might be a novel approach to actually put together some people and say, let's benchmark Montgomery County against our surrounding jurisdictions and find out what we do differently than other people. And we'll then know whether it's completely true, partly true, or not true at all. And I think, Sidney is a small business person, and I think people trust him to do a project like this, and I trust him to do a project like this. And so that's what we're going to start with. We've also talked about who we're going to bring in for procurement, which people will find in another couple of weeks. And our intention is really to change the procurement environment in the county so people will no longer lose a contract and then be told, well, you need to get to know people here. That's coming to an end. And make sure that we follow the recommendations of the small business that we got on small businesses and minority businesses that were never really implemented. So we're bringing in somebody who's really going to alter the landscape on procurement. We're looking at programs that favor local small businesses, programs that do more debundling of contracts so small businesses can actually bid on contracts, so small businesses aren't left to be the subs if you're lucky enough to be picked. We're looking at what I think will be a real serious reform of the environment that opens more doors to small businesses to compete for contracts in the county. Okay.
So with the benchmarking that you mentioned, has that process started? And if not, when will that start?
So the first meeting was set up with Sidney, and I think he met with Diane. And so they're beginning to look at, okay, who's going to be on this group? I've continued to ask people to come to me and tell me you want to be on the group, because I've had this conversation before and never got any volunteers. I think I'll get volunteers now.
I think you will, yeah.
So
there's probably a room full of volunteers here.
and I hope there are, because you hear these stories. I just went to an opening of a restaurant in my neighborhood, and the stories that he told about what he went through, and where he said actually that the one department that really took care of him was DLC, and then otherwise not so much. And so I've asked people, if you've got an actual story to tell about something you encountered, you've got to let us know what those things are. You just can't say it's bad or the regulatory environment, I don't like it. You've got to say, I tried to do this, and this is what I ran into. And we're looking at two different levels. One is the regulatory environment, what I make you do, but the other part is the code environment. And you know, I've heard a lot of complaints that what's required in Montgomery County for bringing things up to code is different than what other jurisdictions do. Even though all of us live with the international code, some people grandfather more things than we do, and that they find it more expensive to build a project in a 70s, 80s, or 90s building in Montgomery County than they would if they went someplace else. Again, there's a person who I know worked on the Baltimore code rewrite, and he's volunteered to be part of this, and we're going to look at our code and make sure we don't require things that other people aren't requiring.
So how long do you project the benchmarking project to take? Like, what's the ideal scenario?
I want all this done with legislation to submit by the end of the year. It shouldn't take any longer than that. My hope it takes less. But I want to make sure we do it right, and that, you know, we're thorough, and then we don't, you know, miss things and wind up having people say, well, you're still doing this, you're still doing that. But my goal is really, I wanted by the end of the year to be able to say, we've heard people, we've addressed these concerns, we've made the changes, and you're going to see things differently.
Okay, awesome. Ms. Navarro. Now, recently you spoke at a Greater Bethesda Chamber event, and you mentioned that we needed to engage in an aggressive economic development strategy. So I'm just curious, do you have specific ideas around what you envision that to look like in terms of an aggressive strategy?
Thank you for the invitation. I think what you just heard is that, and I hope that you know, is that the previous council, as well as I think this new current council, you know, we have put a lot of things in place. So the task force that executive was referring to was the task force that actually I appointed through my committee to look at procurement. We looked at minority businesses. We looked at general procurement issues. Out of that came a lot of different recommendations. Some of them we were able to implement right away, and some of them had to do with, you know, giving preferences to businesses that are located in Montgomery County to look at the targets that we have put in place. One particular area was, you know, the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. How is it focusing on small businesses? So Daniel Parra, he is there because of, you know, this conversation that, you know, we needed to have somebody like him there. And I met, you know, with David Petter immediately. We were able to get him there. So I just want to say that there's a lot that we have done. I think that the opportunity we have now with a new administration and a new council is to take a step back and look at this strategic vision where we look at all the assets that we put in place, but then we have to really take stock of how are we implementing them. One very important component of this aggressive economic development strategy had to do in terms of the council, the tools that we had with planning, with land use. So the master plans that we have put forth, especially in areas of the county that had not seen any revitalization or redevelopment before, those are tools that are really important because it is not about just concentrating our economic activity, you know, on 270 corridor or Bethesda. It's about every corner of the county that has potential. Let's develop that. So the council has put in place, I think, a pretty good set of tools and enabled and set the stage. Now I think it's a really good moment to take stock of, all right, so they're all there. How are we now aggressively pushing all of this, aligning all of this, branding ourselves, you know, marketing out there? I'll be honest, you know, I followed very closely what was happening in Prince George's County when Rashawn Baker took over. And he had a very high bar in terms of how do I position Prince George's County as a place that you know you can come now here and invest and do different things. I have often thought, you know, we've been a little bit complacent because we're Montgomery County. We can't do that anymore. You know, we have to be hungry. We have to go after it because we can't afford not to. We also have very strong values, and we care very much about our social educational investments. But if we don't look very closely at our economic development strategies and the outcomes of that, it's going to be very difficult for us to address the social educational challenges, which, by the way, is what creates a thriving environment so that businesses can thrive. So it's all very connected. And so I see this as an amazing opportunity. I always say, you know, I'm an irrational optimist. I think that, you know, Marc has come in talking about the regulatory issues that we have heard quite a bit. And with this new council, I think everybody is on the same page about, hey, time to just kind of turbocharge our focus on this particular area. We're very competitive, so we want to push this and we want to get ahead there very quickly.
Awesome. You have something to add?
Yes. So what you reminded me of something I didn't get to mention was we're restructuring housing and community affairs. It used to have a more robust economic development component, and it got lost. And I like the EDC. I have no ill harm to it, but it was really set up to do a job that focuses on attracting the larger businesses. We lost the economic specialists attached to the regional service centers. Our incubator programs are only focused on high-tech. Real incubator programs focus on more of that. So we're going to put this stuff back into regional service centers and make sure that I've got people who understand what are the small business people dealing with in the shopping centers, what are the shopping center owners dealing with. I've had conversations with the governor's staff. I've actually had good relations with a lot of the governor's staff over the past 4 years, and the last couple of weeks I've been in Annapolis. I think I'm up to 4 days and 2 weeks, and I'll be down there tomorrow. I'm spending a lot of time, and I'm talking to the governor's people, not just talking to the Democrats. And they said they're putting more money in small business than anybody's ever put into small business. And I asked them about a couple of things I was interested in doing: incubators, business support centers, and are these the kind of projects that they'd be interested in? And they said, yes, they are. So I fully intend, if the governor is planning to support small businesses, I fully intend to be at the table and get as much money as we can for what I think will be a well thought out program of, if you want to spend your money and grow an economy and you're keeping 80% of Montgomery County's dollars, let me help you send dollars there, because the more we do and the more successful we are, if they benefit, great, because we're going to benefit anyway.
Yeah, beautiful. And I get excited when I hear you use words like we're hungry, that there's this passion and pursuit of economic flourishing, and really with this emphasis on small business and entrepreneurship, because oftentimes I know many in the business community feel neglected in terms of, we're not getting the attention that we need. And then we hear about great companies like Amazon potentially coming to the area. And then when that doesn't happen, we feel a certain way as well. Now, since I brought up Amazon, I'd be interested to know each of you all's opinions. Like, how do you think the county will ultimately benefit from Amazon's presence, at least here in the region?
Well, they will bring other businesses, and hopefully we'll get some of them. And I know David Petter is trying to arrange a West Coast trip for me where I'll go visit some of the companies that are most likely to want to come along with Amazon and say, hey, we're here. We want you to come here. We thought we did a pretty good pitch to Amazon. We might actually be able to make a better pitch to some of the smaller companies. When you think about what Crystal City could offer that we couldn't, Amazon can occupy a building at a time in a built environment that is urban and somewhat thriving. We were offering White Flint, which was a pile of dirt. And if you think about it, Amazon was talking about doing their project over 15 years. So I could put in a network of streets in amidst the pile of dirt, and then they would build their first building. It would still be one building in a pile of dirt. 2 years later, a second building. It would take a long time before there was a there. And Crystal City had a place where they could say, there is here, and it's here now. And so I get why I lost. But it also tells you, what are the things that nudged them over the edge? The state's investment, I think, in the high tech, coming in at the last minute as it was. And when you hear people over here say that what we do in our schools is about 2 years behind on the high tech realm, and that we don't have people ready to take jobs in the high tech center. Virginia seemed to respond to that. We didn't have a comparable response. So I think we had good assets, but I think Virginia played their assets heavier.
Right. So then in your opinion, Ms. Navarro, like, how do we prepare for the next big opportunity? How do we prepare now?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think that the fact that we were the only county that made it to the top 20 list was important, because sometimes you do get in the echo chamber of Montgomery County is such a bad place for business. But I'm sure that Amazon, in making that decision, made an evaluation that actually resulted in us being in the top 20. So that says something about where we are. I think going forward, there is no doubt, as I was saying earlier, that we do have to look at what we have set in place and how is that a coherent strategy. The conversation about workforce development is also another very important one, and we're going to have a council session on Workforce Montgomery to understand exactly how strategic are we. You know, when I talk to people from India who tell me, hey, our first export is human resources, you know, and what that means is that if we identify a need somewhere, could be anywhere in the world, we turn around our curriculum very quickly and we deliver to you 3,000 dentists. Well, we have all the pieces in place, I think, here in the county to be able to do that. And so I think that is an area where we have to be very intentional. If we can tell companies, not only do we have a high quality of life here, but we also have this pipeline in terms of workers, all the way from technical level to postdoctorate that you can tap into. You know, not only do we have a very diverse population, which a lot of people value in terms of what that says about Montgomery County, but we also have a great school system. We have Montgomery College, USG. We have all these opportunities and all these assets in place. You know, I honestly believe that a lot of it is how we tell our story, right? Which translates into branding and translates into highlighting the areas and the assets that we have already. So I think that we are poised for that next opportunity. Housing is going to be a big deal. You know, Council of Governments has identified about, you know, the need of about 100,000 residential units up and, you know, on top of what the region needs already. So how are we going to deal with housing? That might mean being very creative about the housing types that attracts then those young professionals or those families. So I think there is, again, a very comprehensive package of areas so that we have to enhance that I feel very confident we will be okay. And we went after Amazon very aggressively. I think it's still a win that it's a regional for the metro region. This is an amazing win, and I know that we are going to benefit from that as well.
Awesome. Now, you talked about housing, but let's turn the corner on that a little bit and talk about the vacancies in commercial and office spaces. And I know you've mentioned in the past that's been a problem. What do you think needs to be done about that?
If I can answer that question, they'd probably hire me away to one of the consulting firms to tell them how to do that.
Well, you're permanently employable then, right?
But look, I think it's a long-standing problem. It's the same number we talked about when I first came on the council, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's over 20 million square feet of approved office building where all anybody has to do is pull a building permit. There's no county regulations standing between that building going up and, you know, and staying an empty lot. Right. And why it's not happening, I mean, there are a number of things going. One is the commercial real estate environment shrinks. People are taking less square footage. So you can actually fit more businesses and more people inside the existing built envelope. So you wonder sometimes, do you need more space? I mean, I can tell you that we've zoned for far more space than anybody is ever going to use. If you take what we've zoned for compared to what the demand, even the projected demand is, we're way out of line. 20 million square feet in a pipeline is equivalent to about 120,000 jobs, and 10 million vacant square feet at 6 jobs per 1,000 square feet is 60,000 jobs. That's 180,000 jobs. That's more jobs that are projected to come here, and you could handle that just between what exists and what's been planned. Now, if some of the things that aren't planned are never going to happen, we should take them off the books and stop carrying them because they're obstacles in the way, and they're in the way of other things. And Park and Planning needs to evaluate how quickly they decide to pull the trigger. And in Bethesda, you have a 2-year trigger, and then your project dies. That's probably a good thing because it stimulates people to either, you know, not just take up the capacity with the plan and never use it. This is like, if you want the capacity, tell us you're going to build something and then build it. But it still doesn't solve, in my mind, how do you fill it? And that's where we've got to look at, what do we do? What are the assets, and how do we sell the assets better? I think personally that completing a decent transportation network is a big deal. The Post, which I make jokes about all the time, had a really good article when they talked about the 22 business leaders in the region who said the biggest fault in the region was lack of regional bus system. There's internal transportation by buses. And if you think about the metro, which is great if you're ferrying people into DC, if you're trying to serve job centers in Montgomery County, metros, that's not what it was designed for. So I don't fault it for being something it wasn't designed for, but the whole purpose of the bus rapid transit network I laid out was to provide the inner county connections so people can get from where they live to where they work, and I think we're going to have to deal with transportation. When I first advanced that idea, my goal was for Montgomery County to have an approach to transit that no other county had, so we could go out and market ourselves as the only place that was taking transit seriously. So we dithered for 10 years, and every Northern Virginia county has BRT, and then they expanded the Silver Line, and we broke ground sort of on the first BRT line on 29. I think part of it's transit, part of it's understanding how do we market our assets in a way that people want to come here. And part of it, I think, is being just more aggressive. I ask people why Prince George's has been very successful in attracting IT companies, and I've talked to people who've gone there. They said, we go to these meetings, Montgomery County's not present. Prince George's County, Pradeep, who used to work for us, he's got his arm around us. He's introducing us to county people who want to help, and they are really, really aggressive. We ought to learn.
Yeah. So I'm going to invite our first question up, but while they're transitioning there, another question. Since you brought up transportation, the business leaders in the county have long supported sort of investments in transportation infrastructure. Will you work with Governor Hogan on his proposed 270 and 495 projects?
So I had a lovely conversation with the governor last week. We had about a half hour, and we sat down and talked. And you know, my position is pretty simple. You need to prioritize the American Legion Bridge. And what I understand is that in his last meeting with the P3 partners, he said we're prioritizing the American Legion Bridge. It makes sense to go there first. 270 is solvable without the major widening between what they've done with paint in the lower part of 270 and the interior service lane. I'm obsessed with looking at my road environment. So if you come down 70, you've got an interior service lane that a lot of roads don't have. Well, you could take the interior service lane and turn that into a lane tomorrow. I asked them to do it during the campaign. I said, look, if you want to be a hero, open up that lane now to cars. You'll get traffic relief instantly by adding the lane. So I think there are things they can do there reasonably. I don't support the Beltway widening. I've heard them talk about tunneling and cantilevering lanes over the Beltway. And I'm thinking, so now we're going to have, what, 50-foot sound walls. Good luck getting over the bridges, including a Marc train bridge and the Metro bridge. I mean, imagine a road riding up there and then it's going to be, so I don't see how this fits in a reasonable budget. And I think he really needs to think about transportation. I pointed out that you've got the same queues getting off the Beltway that you had when there were single ramp exits. Now you got double ramp exits. The queues are as long as ever. I said, you need to help us move traffic on Georgia, Connecticut, and Wisconsin so cars can get off the Beltway. Otherwise, you're just going to speed them to the back of a line waiting to get off. So, but I think, you know, the guy's willing to spend money and he wants to solve a problem. I can work with somebody like that.
Awesome. Question?
Good morning. My name is Bob Fisher. I'm with Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And for a small business, where do you think the money comes from to pay the county's minimum wage? Thank you.
That's a very interesting question. I think that there are very many places where the money comes from. Depends on the type of business, obviously. You know, one of the reasons why we decided to do a phase-in approach was precisely to make sure that it wasn't a decision where you just went, you know, all the way to 15 right away and give businesses an opportunity to figure out how that would work. You know, we heard a lot from businesses and we heard a lot from small businesses. We also heard a lot from people who just could not afford to live in Montgomery County. And that, in a very direct way, has an effect on our budget and our ability to provide also services to our residents, right? And so it kind of is that cycle where, you know, we hear loud and clear that we don't want any tax increases, but if we have to subsidize the fact that there are people who are working but just can't pay their basic bills, then where do you get the money to do that? And so, you know, I hear your question. Obviously, it's a very broad question, but I think every business has to look at how it is that they're going to be able to comply with what's already law in Montgomery County. And we're looking also at the impact. You know, we did include a requirement for the Office of Legislative Oversight to track some indicators in our economy as it relates to the minimum wage. So we're also taking a look at that as well.
Good, thank you.
And it's going to be the law in the state.
Yep.
They're going to pass the bill, and they're going to have full phase-in probably by 2024. Our full phase-in is 24. You know, we had 3 tiers. So some people go in 21, some people go in 23, and the last group goes in 24. So it's going to be the new world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is John Hale, President of Next Generation Solar, and also with the Montgomery County Black Business Council. And my question is, what are your proposals to reduce the tax burden, both business and personal and business, in Montgomery County so that we are more competitive with surrounding counties in the DMV?
So I'll be blunt. The county did a study a couple years ago of our comparative tax burden, inspired by DC's study on comparative tax burden. Montgomery County is not the high tax jurisdiction. We're kind of moderate. The state income tax is the highest income tax. But if you look at county taxes, we're kind of in the middle. And if you're doing development, Fairfax and Northern Virginia counties make us look like a really cheap date. I mean, you know, their base tax in Fairfax County is $1.15. Ours is about 98, 99. And in Fairfax County, every square inch of commercial property pays 12 cents addition to the $1.15 to pay. That goes into a transportation fund, which lets them build transportation projects, which the business community actually went to Richmond and asked the Republican legislature and governor to give the local jurisdictions the authority to impose these taxes. And if you develop in Tyson's, add 38 cents to that. So you're at about $1.66 to develop in Tyson's. If you develop along the Route 28 corridor, it's 25 cents instead of 38, so you're at about $1.53. We are not the most expensive, but we're also trying to control expenditures. I mean, I've committed to resizing the county government because there are things I want to do, and I cannot do them with tax increases. No one is going to support it. So my goal is to figure out how much I can get out of the existing budget so I can meet additional needs without driving your taxes up.
And I'll just add that, you know, similarly to what I was saying, that we have all these assets in place already, right? That now we just need to leverage them and move forward. I feel the same way about our county government and our initiatives and our programs. We do have a lot of assets in place, but we understand what you were just describing, not only for small businesses, but just for our average, you know, resident. There is no appetite, and we all know that, you know, this idea of just thinking, oh, we have another challenge, therefore let's just raise taxes for it. This is not sustainable. And so for us, I think it's also looking at what is it that we have already in place? Where have we invested? We have a very amazing nonprofit, you know, ecosystem as well. How can we leverage all those resources to be very strategic about some of our biggest challenges? You know, things like early childhood education, you know, those types of programs. It's not about, well, let's just go ahead and raise taxes so we can, you know, fund it. What do we have in place also that we can leverage, that we can start to? So it's a change in culture and in thinking. I think for too long in Montgomery County, that was sort of like the tradition because, you know, we had a lot of revenue coming in. So, hey, we identify an issue, let's just create an initiative. I think now is just that time, and we're lucky in that sense, right? There are other jurisdictions that don't have that luxury.
If we think that taxes are the answer, then you never have to be introspective. You never have to think about what you're doing. You never have to try to do a better job. So the moment you take taxes off the table, it forces you to be creative. I took taxes off the table from the beginning, and I've said I'm going to do this by reframing the way the county does its work.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for being here. So as we wrap up this conversation, I just want to thank the county executive and the council president for joining us here today. Thank you for joining us on the live stream as well as here in the television studio. We invite you back again next month. We'll be here for another exciting topic, so you do not want to miss it. But until then, on behalf of Montgomery Community Media and the entire Small Business Network team, thank you for joining us. Have a great day.